Did three children receive a prophecy here in Fatima in 1917 that foretold the date of the apocalypse? Did it warn of a plague and the destruction of the church? And has the Vatican covered it up for nearly a century?
If the apparitions were true, the only possible explanation is that it was apocalyptic or dealt with the end of the church.
They saw something they officialized to be a religious sighting, the Holy Mary in this case. So definitely, I think that they may have seen something.
Malachi's prophecy states that this final pope, Pope Francis, is the final pope.
There's nothing more horrible than the content of the third secret of Fatima. The destruction, the total destruction of Rome, and the murder, an attack, a murderous attack on the Roman Curia and the Pope himself.
Here in Fatima, on 6 occasions between May and October 1917, it is said that the Virgin Mary appeared to 3 young Portuguese children, Lucia Santos and her 2 cousins, Francisco and Jacinta. Now, according to the official Catholic interpretation of the prophecies, they involve hell, 2 world wars, and the assassination attempt on John Paul II. 2 of the secrets were revealed in 1941 in a document written by Lucia at the request of her local bishop. When he asked her to reveal the 3rd secret, she apparently hesitated, wrote the secret down and sealed it in an envelope, saying that it was not to be opened until 1960. That date came and went, with the Vatican refusing to reveal its contents. Then in 2000, Pope John Paul II decided the time had come to tell all, and he instructed his cardinals to reveal what Lucia had written, although many people doubt it was the real text. Since 2000, there's been a huge controversy as to whether the Vatican has deliberately concealed the true 3rd secret. For a start, the Vatican's version released was written on 4 sheets of paper, and yet there are eyewitnesses who swear that Lucia's version was written on 1 small piece of paper. The question is, why would the Vatican want to cover up anything?
The first 2 secrets were pretty clear and straightforward, dealing with the First and Second World Wars. Now, the 3rd secret, as we remember it, was sent to the Vatican, allegedly on a single sheet of paper, which the little girl, well, woman as she was then, wrote out. She had been very reluctant to write that 3rd secret. I strongly suspect that something very strange happened to it. And the basis of my suspicion is the descriptions that were given by various high-ranking officials about what was in the envelope. Allegedly, she had written no more than 25 or 30 lines on a single sheet of paper. But there was evidence of 4 sheets of paper being found. Now, that's the first big question mark that leaps into your mind.
The Vatican, over the years, over the centuries, has proved itself so basically untrustworthy by manipulating and censoring and editing information and trying to steer all the information in the direction it wants, that it basically can't be trusted. So whatever it says, you can never be sure that they're telling the truth.
I mean, in the Vatican's defence, there's not much more they can do to persuade you that they're telling the truth. They've released everything they have.
But The Church, the Vatican, has been caught out so many times, either lying or being, economical with the truth, that today they're in a position where, whatever they say, you don't know if it's true or not.
Father Carlos Cabasinas is in charge of the Basilica in Fatima today. He welcomes millions of pilgrims and tourists every year, and I asked him what he made of the idea of a cover-up. I've spoken to a few people who tell me that when Sister Lucia first wrote it down, it was written down on one piece of paper, and when the Vatican revealed it was on many different pieces of paper. How do you explain that?
I think we have to hear what Sister Lucy has said. When Cardinal Bertone asked Sister Lucy if all she was writing was revealed, she said, yes, all is revealed. That means there are many speculations about this revelation, this publication of the third part of the secret, but I don't think we have a problem.
Why do you think the Vatican thought it important to suppress the third secret? Why not make it public at the time?
I find that as great a mystery as the secret itself. And yet, when we look at a number of things which have, over the centuries, been considered as important to be kept secret, there are those who feel that certain knowledge must be kept from the people. I tend to think that those in power, both in the church and in politics, have a very low opinion of the rest of us. And there's always this, oh, you mustn't tell the people, they'll panic. Well, I'm damned if they'll panic. I want to know what's happening. Thank you very much.
So much of the story is suspicious. You have to wonder how the church has countered all the conspiracy theories. Well, I'll tell you how they counter it. They counter it with a trump card that says, we took this nun, we took her to Vatican City and we brought her in and we showed her the letter and we said, sister, this is yours, right? And she said, yes, I wrote that. But imagine, put yourself in her shoes. She is really getting on in years. She's a nun from rural Portugal, and she's now in Vatican City with the most powerful people in her faith. And they're telling her, they're pressuring her. This is like CSI Vatican City. She has no choice. She has to give in. She's pressured. Undoubtedly, she says, yes, this is what I said.
One thing that isn't a secret is that the prophecies are big business here in Fatima. It's estimated that some 4.5 million people visit every year, and it's impossible not to see the Virgin Mary on everything from mugs and tea towels to phials of holy water. Yours for €1. Fatima really does feel like a religious theme park. I asked my local guide and driver, Alex, what he made of it all.
We are near the Basilica. This is one of the main streets of Fatima. As you can see, it's fully crowded. And they even have a wax museum with figures from the religion, like John Pope II, the shepherds. And
Every shop looks like it's selling the same kind of stuff, right?
yes, what else?
They're all selling dolls of the Mary and statues of
for
Jesus.
quite a long time, because, well, it makes sense, because the main visitors here are pilgrims, religious kind of pilgrims. And definitely when they come here, they want to take something with them.
So would it be fair to say that without the prophecies, there wouldn't be any town?
No, probably this would be just plain fields like they were before, you know. And of course, it would not be developed like it is.
Fatima is the church's Disneyland. And yes, you can buy rosaries and the sorts of things you'd expect to buy, but you can also buy Fatima toenail clippers. You can buy Fatima straw hats and anything in between. It is a marketeer's dream, what it has become. And there's no sign of it relenting. It's going to be, and continue to be, the showcase site for the church's supernatural for decades to come.
Do you think the three shepherds really saw the Virgin Mary?
Well, they saw something, definitely. I believe in that, even because the reports of the sightings are really remote. But the sightings of Fatima, of the three shepherds, looks like it gathered all the sightings had been previously occurred in here. And, well, they officialized to be a religious sighting. And, well, the Holy Mary in this case. So, definitely, I think that they may have seen something.
What's interesting is Portugal and Spain have a long tradition of apparitions. They've been seen for many hundreds of years. But when I say apparitions, it's not the appearance of the Virgin Mary. It's anomalous lights. It's strange things in the sky. And it's true, they have existed in that part of the world for a long time. So it's entirely possible that these three young children experienced that natural phenomenon, reported it, and the church went, aha, this is an opportunity.
On October the 13th, 1917, a group of some 70,000 people gathered in a field here in Fatima to witness what's become known as the miracle of the sun. According to eyewitness reports, the sun changed colour and spun around like a wheel in the sky, causing the crowd to drop to their knees and weep. So, was this simply a case of mass hysteria, or had they witnessed a very real miracle? Was it near here? Was it
No, it was in all this space.
all here?
Yes.
This is where it happened?
Yes.
So let's just go back to 1917,
Yes.
October 30th. So there's 70,000
Yes,
people here?
Here. You have to imagine we don't have anything of that here.
No, this is just a field.
Just a field with stones and with trees. The people were everywhere here. The three children were close to the place where now stays the statue of Our Lady there.
Okay, so the three
Yes.
children are there.
Yes. They prayed the rosary, and the sister Lucy tell us they prayed the rosary with a terrible rain, and then suddenly the rain stops, and the people look to the sun and see the sun rolling and approaching.
Do we know what that means? Was that part of the...
No, we don't know the meaning. The meaning to the people that were here and to the church is that was a confirmation of the truth of the apparitions of the message of Our Lady.
Right. Because Lucia and the other two, they predicted that would happen.
Yes.
So they said...
Yes, Our Lady have said that in October it will be a miracle, and all the people will be convinced of that the children said that it was true.
It's entirely possible that these three young kids who saw this natural phenomenon reported it, and that the church, it may not have dawned on them right away, but probably pretty quickly, that this was an opportunity to say, no, you didn't see white lights, you didn't see anomalous flashing and things going on in the sky that happen quite frequently in this part of the world. No, you saw the Virgin Mary. You saw a true apparition, didn't you? You can imagine it. You can absolutely imagine it. And of course, these kids would be terrified. And of course, they would say, yes, yes, that's what we saw. It was the Virgin Mary. And once they acknowledge that, it's a fabulous opportunity to superimpose what the church does best, which is forget about the real mundane history. Let us baffle you with the supernatural.
Do you think the Vatican have been less than transparent?
Oh, I think they have. I think that there may well be something in that mysterious third secret which, from the point of view of a powerful member of the Vatican hierarchy, ought not to reach the rest of us because. Now, the because is only in his mind or in 2 or 3 minds in the Vatican, rather than what the rest of us would do with it if we got it.
Sister Lucia died back in 2005, but I've managed to track down one of her cousins who's known her for more than 50 years. Hi, Maria. It's Jamie Theakston. Thank you. Thanks. Jesus lives here. Oh. Hi, Maria. Jamie. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me over. To your lovely house. Wow, look at this. And these are 3 shepherds?
Sim, Lúcia, Jacinta,
and Francisco. Wow, look at that. Maria, what was Sister Lucia like?
Irmã Lúcia era alegre, era honesta, muito honesta, de boa vontade, muito amiga de nós, muito amiga, mas era rigorosa. Nós tínhamos também de ter juízo quando falávamos com ela. Sabia nos dar bons conselhos, mas também nos sabia repreender. Com a aparição, aquilo modificou-se tudo. Todos lhe começaram a ralhar, a repreender o que é que ela andava a fazer. Ela era uma mentirosa e sofreu muito, pois ela escondia-se. Gostavam tanto dela, começaram a tratá-la agressivamente.
Did Lucia believe the Vatican revealed the true third secret in 2000?
Acreditava. Acreditou sempre no que Nossa Senhora lhe disse, só que esperava a realização dos factos. E o segredo foi tão guardado porque lá figurava a pessoa do Papa. Quando o Papa caiu, o segredo foi revelado. Eu perguntei à irmã Lúcia o que era o segredo, há muitos anos. E ela disse, isso não te diz respeito.
None of your business. One of the big questions that swirls around the Fatima controversy is whether it's true that the Vatican either lied about the true content of the third secret or at least distorted the truth. They've always denied this, but the rumours haven't gone away. In 2007, Cardinal Bertone, the Vatican's chief of staff, went on national television in Italy to show the world what he said was the real third secret of Fatima. He revealed a sealed envelope dated 1967 in which was a large piece of handwritten text folded into 4 parts. This, he said, was the actual letter on which Sister Lucia wrote her prophecy down.
If the apparitions were true, and if the third secret, which was held a secret and not told to the public longer than any other, decades before it was revealed. The only possible explanation is that it was apocalyptic, or dealt with the end of the church, or the rise of satanic influences within it. That's the only thing in my head that third secret could possibly have really been about.
In an interview for a German magazine published back in October 1981, Pope John Paul II was asked explicitly to speak about the third secret, and this is what he said. It is said that the oceans will flood entire sections of the earth, that from one moment to the other, millions of people will perish. We can do nothing against a catastrophe that has been predicted. We must be prepared to undergo great trials in the not-too-distant future, trials that will require us to be ready to give up even our lives. Through your prayers and mine, it is possible to alleviate this tribulation, but it is no longer possible to avert it. Rob Howells is an English author and researcher who studied the Fatima controversy for years. He believes the cover-up is real, and it was done to protect people from these apocalyptic revelations.
Hey, Rob. The third secret of Fatima revolves around the apocalypse. And we know this from a number of reasons, a number of sources within the church, and from the witness herself, Sister Lucia, who recorded, is on record as stating that it relates to part of the book of Revelation, which is the opening of the seven seals and the destruction of Rome and the final apocalypse.
Rob told me that he'd discussed the third secret with a senior Vatican official back in the 1990s. This priest confirmed that the prophecy had been discussed at the very highest levels in the Vatican and that its true content included a grave, apocalyptic message.
Pope John Paul II also went on record to say that if you'd read the book of Revelation and you knew that the oceans would inundate the world and that millions of people would die in one day, then you'd learn nothing more from the release of the third secret.
Rob was also told that Sister Lucia had been given the actual date of the start of this apocalypse and the subsequent global destruction. Apparently, according to the priest, she did pass this information along to Pope John Paul II, but he died shortly after, taking the date to his grave.
This was the secret that was supposedly to be released in 1960, but was held back. And then in the year 2000, a version of it was finally released. But we know that that version wasn't the actual prophecy because it differs from what the girl had written in her journal at the time. She'd written the first line, that their faith would always be strong in Portugal. And the version they released had no such first line. So not only did they hold it back for a further 40 years, when they finally released something, it wasn't the text of the third secret of Fatima. So it must be of such importance that it was felt that the public weren't ready to hear it.
The fire of controversy over the third secret has been fueled by a number of Italian authors and journalists over the last few years who've challenged the Vatican to reveal the true content of the prophecy. A number of books have been written, there have been debates on television, and the press have been full of articles. One of the Vatican's leading critics is the journalist Solideo Paolini.
Has there been a Vatican cover-up over the prophecies of Fatima?
Sì, c'è stato un insabbiamento, in particolare sul terzo segreto di Fatima. Ma ad opera di chi? Questa è una questione piuttosto complessa, in cui si sommano le motivazioni e ritengo ne abbiano parte sia alcuni uomini all'interno del Vaticano che ambienti esterni alla Chiesa. Quindi a questo livello sugli autori è un discorso piuttosto complesso.
Why has the Vatican covered this up?
Questa domanda sulla motivazione, o meglio sulle motivazioni, ha risposta nei contenuti del terzo segreto di Fatima, in particolare nella sua parte a tutt'oggi non ufficialmente pubblicata. Questi contenuti sono molto forti e scomodi per varie categorie di persone, per cui a motivo proprio dei suoi contenuti varie categorie di persone hanno ritenuto che fosse il caso di non farli esattamente conoscere.
What is it that the Vatican aren't telling us?
E parlano sia di sciagure per il mondo, da cui anche il timore di panico, crisi di panico, ma anche di mali interni alla Chiesa.
Solideo Paolini believes that the true third secret had foretold of the current crises within the Catholic Church, including the child abuse scandal and the controversy swirling around the Vatican Bank and allegations of fraud. He says he's been told by his Vatican contacts that the real third secret talks about the Church in Rome losing its way and being seduced by the forces of evil.
The Vatican claim that they have revealed everything there is to do with the cover-up and there's no more information, they're not hiding anything. What do you make of that?
In effetti il Vaticano ha detto in maniera ambigua che è pubblicato tutto il terzo segreto, ma ha riconosciuto anche ufficialmente che ci sono delle carte di Fatima inedite. Forse il testo mancante viene considerato una delle carte, quindi un problema di catalogazione. C'è anche un'altra possibile spiegazione. Come dico nel mio ultimo libro, già dal titolo, non esiste perché distrutto? Non è che questo testo esisteva ieri e non esiste oggi, almeno come manoscritto originale, perché è stato distrutto. Al Vaticano le risposte, non sfuggenti e non reticenti.
It would seem the Vatican are in a state of turmoil at the moment. Do you think that we're seeing the third secret of Fatima, the prophecy, coming true?
I think it might even have had something to do with the untimely resignation of Benedict. You see, that hasn't happened for 600 years. And that might have been something which, again, is not of any great importance to most of us, but which would have been something unthinkable to them. And therefore, if somebody had actually, we'll say, read that the next Pope is going, or Pope Benedict is going to resign before he dies in office, that would have been considered as something so traumatic within the Vatican hierarchy. Oh, mustn't let people know that. Pope will resign. Oh, it'll change the world. Because had practically no impression on anybody. The guy's resigned. Well, good luck. He was 85 and feeling his age.
Edward Pentin is the Rome correspondent for the Catholic Herald. He's been a Vatican insider for over a decade and agreed to meet and give me his take on the Fatima affair.
Do you believe that there was a cover-up, that the Vatican deliberately misled the public over the secret of Fatima?
I personally don't think that's the case. I think Cardinal Bertone, who was in charge of who was Archbishop then, in charge of the third secret of Fatima, gave a very strong statement saying that this is all hearsay. What he's revealed is the full secret, the third secret of Fatima. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, certainly in Italy, there's a certain culture in the media of looking at the Vatican particularly and seeing lots of conspiracies. And it's called in Italian dietrologia, which means there's always something in the background going on which we don't know about. That's not to say that there isn't, but I think often there is a certain default position among certain Italian journalists to look at this and say, this isn't all that we're being told, there's more to it, there must be more to it. And in fact, Sister Lucia did actually agree with Cardinal Bertoni's statement, saying that everything has been revealed and what's been revealed is true. So I don't think one can easily contend that there is a conspiracy going on, not now. But obviously some people still believe that.
Every Sunday in Rome, when he's in town, the Pope makes an appearance in St. Peter's Square to address and bless the crowd. In the waning years of Benedict's reign, the numbers had dwindled to a few thousand, but the new Pope, Francis, is drawing huge crowds, as Rob Howells and I saw for ourselves.
Che si legge nella liturgia di questa terza domenica di Pasqua. Si comporta come Gesù nella sua passione. Padre.
When you look around, you really get that sense of just how powerful and how popular still, you know, the Catholic Church is. It seems rather far-fetched, don't you think, that this is going to be, we're prophesying the end of the Catholic Church, don't you think?
You have to see that Christianity is an apocalyptic faith. It has an apocalyptic ending. So all these people here will believe in some form of apocalypse, be it spiritual, physical. You know, it may be destructive, it may be earthquakes, or it may be something more personal, but they all believe in an apocalypse, and they all believe to some extent that it's imminent, because it was prophesied that after 2,000 years from the life of Christ that he would return to oversee this kind of final event, and that this, according to Malachi, this may be the last pope that also is present at the apocalypse. Malachi's prophecy states that this final pope, Pope Francis, is the final pope, the Peter of Rome, Peter the Roman, who will oversee the fall of the Vatican and the end of the Catholic Church, and that it will be destructive, that Rome will be destroyed. So we've reached that date.
You've got quite a sort of literal idea of what the prophecy means. Do people have different opinions or different interpretations of what it might be?
It could be purely spiritual. It could be the collapse of the Vatican, the collapse of the Catholic Church, that at some point they hand back control or belief or faith to individuals, whereas before people would find God directly. This idea is that you don't need a pope or a priest, and you go back to a kind of Gnostic, just as Jesus actually would have communicated directly with God and not gone to the priests and would have argued with priests. There may come a time when the Catholic people don't need a pope, and it may be that it's talking about the end of the church in that form, and that it takes another form.
These are dark and difficult times for the Vatican and possibly the Catholic Church. As a priest yourself, Lionel, do you think that the third prophecy might be coming true?
Well, as a very simple, everyday and ordinary serving priest, I would find what's happening in the church is very disturbing. And I have always separated in my mind what I think of as churchianity, which is an organization with people struggling for power at the top and not necessarily always behaving as we rather hoped they would, from Christianity, which takes me back to the carpenter of Nazareth, who taught us to love one another, and where Jesus says, "Inasmuch as you have done it to one of my brothers or sisters, you've done it to me." Now that, for me, is the core of true Christian religion. That is the religion of which I want to be a priest. Is it possible that the third prophecy said something about the downfall of the church unless better things were done, better behavior came, because it does look, from a global point of view, that the church is in very serious trouble.
Needless to say, the Vatican's official position is that the true text of the third secret was revealed in 2000, and that's that. There is no controversy. There hasn't been any cover-up, and no one has lied. We tried to talk to some senior officials at the Vatican about this subject, but they declined. However, we were put in touch with Michael Hessemann, a German author and historian who's worked closely within the Vatican for years. He co-authored a book, My Brother the Pope, with Monsignor George Ratzinger, Pope Benedict's older brother, and has been involved with dating important relics for the Holy See for a number of years.
Do you believe that the Vatican has covered up the third secret of Fatima?
Not at all, certainly not. First of all, there's no reason to cover it up. Why? Because if you read the sermons, the homilies given by Pope Benedict himself in the last couple of years, they are much more severe and much more serious, even than the strongest version of the alleged Fatima secret. Second, to believe there's a cover-up would mean to believe that both the last Pope, Pope Benedict, and Pope John Paul II were liars. Also Cardinal Bertone, who investigated it on behalf of Pope John Paul II and who prepared the publication by both of them, Bertone himself and Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI. So to believe that popes were liars, I mean, why? Why? There's no intention. There's no reason for such an outrageous claim. To make such a big claim, you have to have evidence. There's no evidence at all, and there's no reason to cover it up. Because what should be more horrible than the death of maybe hundreds of priests and bishops of a destroyed city of Rome, and an assassination attempt, or even an assassination in the vision of a pope? There's nothing more horrible you can imagine, nothing more serious to be covered up.
You've asked Bertone yourself about the third secret of Fatima. What did he have to say?
After the Holy See published the third secret of Fatima, I wanted to know the whole story. So I got an interview with Cardinal Bertone, a 2-hour interview in the presence of Georg Genswein, who was a young Monsignor at the congregation at that time. And I wanted to know everything from him, and he told me very frankly he was commissioned by Pope John Paul II to prepare the publication, and he flew to Portugal several times to meet with Sister Lucia, the only surviving of the 3 children of Fatima, in her Carmel convent in Coimbra. And one time he brought the original envelope, the very envelope which was later published, and showed it to her and said, "Is this the third secret?" And she confirmed it. She was completely in the affirmative. And he asked her, "Is there anything else which we don't have, which we don't know about?" And she said, "No, this is the only third secret." So of course you can say Cardinal Bertone, the Cardinal Secretary of State of the Vatican, and 2 popes are liars. But is this reasonable? Why? There's nothing more horrible than the content of the third secret of Fatima. The destruction, the total destruction of Rome, and the murder, an attack, a murderous attack on the Roman Curia and the Pope himself. This is the best explanation why it was kept secret, because the content was so horrible, but nobody wanted even to deal with the idea that this could happen.
With all the accusations and intrigue about the third secret swirling around Rome, it's easy to forget that it all started back here, in Fatima, in 1917, in a remote field with 3 young children. Their prophecies had a huge impact on the church and changed their little village forever.
It's hard to believe, Father Carlos, looking out here now, that this was all just once fields not that long ago. I mean,
Fatima has almost a century, but at the beginning here there was nothing but stones and some trees. Also, this place where we are, this city, this little town of Fatima has grown. That means we have now many hotels, many restaurants, many shops, but also this place, which is the reason of millions of people each year comes to Fatima.
Everyone I see and everything from the people and the shops and the hotels all seem to be directly related to the whole Fatima industry, right?
Exactly. It's the main industry. It's the way that the people, because otherwise this would be just a small village, rural probably, and quite poor actually, because the biggest town is about 20 kilometers from here. And well, this small village developed into be a town, but well, a town full of hotels and full of shops.
So what is the truth about the third secret? The Vatican says there is absolutely no cover-up, and the correspondence that they've released is exactly what Sister Lucia wrote. On the other hand, there are a large number of authors, journalists, and conspiracy theorists who remain convinced that the real documents are still hidden in the Vatican archives. After Sister Lucia died, did Bertoni issue the order to have the papers seized and to seal up the room?
Alla morte di Suor Lucia è stata subito sigillata la sua cella. Risulta certamente che ci sono molte incongruenze nella versione ufficiale. Il Vaticano stesso più volte ha detto il terzo segreto, no, è tutto, non si sa bene in che senso, però ci sono delle carte, delle lettere di Fatima inedite. Di che cosa parlano queste lettere? Io anche nel mio ultimo libro riporto un'istanza che ho mandato al Supremo Tribunale della Segnatura Apostolica l'8 dicembre 2008. 4 anni e mezzo fa, in cui dico: l'avete riconosciuto che ci sono queste lettere inedite? Di cosa parlano? Perché non vengono pubblicate? Nessuna risposta. Ho scritto di nuovo, dopo 4 anni e mezzo, nessuna risposta. Fare luce, fare trasparenza.
I think the third secret truly was about the end of the church as we know it, possibly the end of the world, possibly the rise of evil forces such as Satanism. I think it had to be about that. And you know, I think the church really missed an opportunity 20 years ago to be honest about that and to spin that. Because look at what's happened. It's all come to fruition.
Why was it important for the Vatican to keep this secret?
I think it speaks of the end times and of the end of the Vatican itself. And I think, obviously, that with over 1 billion members, the Catholic Church would be thrown into a state of panic if people really believed that there was an impending event that was worldwide destruction. You can't know how people would react to that. And if it's an inevitable event, what can you really do about it?
Do you think there's been a cover-up of the third secret of Fatima?
I believe in human freedom. I do not believe that the future can ever be accurately predicted. And far from being a prediction of some future event which is inevitable, it should be regarded as a warning. And whatever message those children received, and this third secret is the mysterious one, was not to tell of an inevitable disaster, but to, in rather pictorial way, just as the first secret was a vision of hell which terrified them desperately, this was meant to convey a fear that unless we all started behaving in a better way, this is what would happen. This is what the dark side of human nature would do to us.
So, what did these three children witness here almost a century ago? And has there really been a Vatican cover-up? Or has the whole controversy just been whipped up by conspiracy theorists, disgruntled priests, and journalists looking for a good story? But if it is true that the third secret gave an actual date for a coming apocalypse that would wipe out humanity, which we could do nothing about, then, well, maybe ignorance isn't such a bad thing after all. See you next time.